Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you're joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. I think, if I am not mistaken, we are close to 3,000 subscribers. 25. We're 25 away from 3,000 subscribers. Thank you to everybody that joins us, that hangs out with us, especially in the mornings. That Talk Spicy crew, you guys know who you are. You've been supporting since day one. Make sure that if you are new here, if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, that you go ahead and you subscribe to the pod. Also, Zebra Stripes podcast is back. We officially dropped season 2, episode 1 yesterday. Go and check that out wherever you get your podcast from. You know, things are up. It's a lot of things going on. Last night there was football. There was actually more football than normal because a lot of the high school teams, for some reason, in my area had a football game yesterday. But in particular, the Saints, who ended up losing once again to the Arizona Cardinals last night, and at least what can be described as a more exciting game than we've been getting on these Thursday nights. We actually, had some dynamics to it. But one of the narratives that I couldn't stop hearing was the words calming presence. And see, this is why I come on here and I tell you that we as media people in the media, people who spread the word, we have such powerful voices, and we have to really be sure that we're not being led down a path by media people who may have an agenda. Now, what the agenda is, I have no clue. It might be, the agenda might range from personal beef to just a personal dislike of a person, all the way to, hey, I'm trying to make inroads with this coach who, I'm trying to get him to feed me information, so I'm kind of putting narratives out there for him. It could be a myriad of things. It's never just one thing, right? It's never just one thing, but it is a thing, and it is real, because last night during this NFL broadcast, on more than one occasion did I hear, well, and not necessarily from the broadcasters, but from people who were reporting around the game, calming presence. And they use that term to talk about Andy Dalton, which I think is interesting because I don't think I've ever thought calm around Andy Dalton. I think most of the times in his career, going all the way back to TCU, I didn't think calm, what I thought was safe, right? It wasn't calm that I felt when I watched Andy Dalton play quarterback. It was safe. It was very safe. And that's the way I always looked at him. That is the way I always perceived him. I perceived him as safe. Hey, you know what? Andy Dalton on most occasions is not going to beat you. Why? Because he's safe. If Andy Dalton has to beat you, a lot of times he gets in trouble, and therefore he stays safe. He's about self-preservation. I'm not mad at him. Aaron Rodgers has this to a certain extent. Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, but you know why Aaron Rodgers does not throw a lot of interceptions? because Aaron Rodgers doesn't put the ball in jeopardy very much. It's a flaw that can be overcome, because if you're making the right decision with the ball, most of the time, you don't have to worry about making bad decisions, right? And what comes from making bad decisions? If you're making the right decision with the ball as a quarterback, then safe doesn't come into the equation a lot until you're down, until you're behind, and you're forced to try to make plays. Now, see, the difference between Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston is that Jameis Winston doesn't know when he's beat. He doesn't know when to wave the white flag. And because he doesn't know when to wave the white flag, he continues trying to win. It doesn't matter to him how many interceptions he throws in a game that they're behind, because they were going to lose anyway. So he might as well do what he thinks he needs to do to get the team back in it. That is why Jameis Winston throws interceptions in bunches. That's why you'll see him with a 3-interception game. You'll see him with a 4-interception game. You know who else is the same way? Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is the same type of quarterback. I'm not saying that both of them are the same ability level, although they probably both have about the same arm strength. Jameis Winston, if you don't know, has a cannon, and Patrick Mahomes has a cannon. They're both mobile enough, but I think that Patrick Mahomes is more creative with the ball, and he probably puts the ball in less peril than Winston. But they both have that same thing, that same it, right? They both have that same gene, if you will, that I can bring us back from anything. I can run this score down. And because of that, they throw a lot of interceptions in bunches. Not necessarily a lot of interceptions outside of that one season by Winston when he threw 30, right? I say that because never have I ever thought about Winston being a calming presence. I've never thought of him and said, oh, calm. You know what I've saw? Confidence. Confidence. I've never seen that man not look confident behind center. I've never seen fear behind center. I see awareness. I see confidence, not fear. I also don't see safe. And so it's interesting to me that people are running with this narrative that Andy Dalton should be the quarterback of the Saints, even when Winston is healthy, because he's a calming presence, right? Because he's a calming presence. Being a calming presence doesn't mean anything to me if you're throwing interceptions. Well, you know, he threw that interception in the end zone, but he was calm about it. Shout out to LJ. What's up, my guy? Oh, yeah, you know, he threw those 2 picks, but he was calm about it. The team seems really calm with him throwing interceptions. Like, that doesn't make any sense. If you're throwing interceptions, if you're turning the ball over, nobody's going to be calm. That's how I know that some people who make these, like, who try to spin these narratives have never legitimately been on the sideline. They've never been on the sideline. I know exactly why Jameis Winston throws an interception. I know when Jameis Winston throws an interception, I know exactly why. He tried to throw it there, in between those people, He overestimated his arm. He overestimated his ability to throw it into or through a coverage. When Andy Dalton throws an interception, I'm like, why he do that? Why he do that? What was the thought process behind that decision? And immediately the narrative spin. He throws the interceptions. Well, that one went off the hands of the receiver. Well, you never say that when Jameis Winston throws an interception. You just point to the interception numbers. That's all they do. Well, you know, Andy Dalton has less interceptions in the games that he started over Jameis Winston. Now he doesn't. Now he doesn't. Oh, well, you know, and Andy Dalton, last game, he had 300 plus yards and a couple touchdowns. Well, yeah, because he scored those couple touchdowns in garbage time when they were down 21 points late in the game. And they know they're not going to lose. Empty calories. Those touchdowns mean nothing. But Andy Dalton, who's safe, will get you those touchdowns because it's going to make his stats look better and then make you think, oh, well, he didn't play that bad. Yeah, he did. He was awful. He was bad. But why the narrative of a calming presence? You know why? Because calming presence says leadership. And leadership says I should be the starter. So if you don't want one person to start, if you want the other person to start, you can't use anything that's physical. You can't say he throws the ball better, he makes better decisions. You can't say that he commands a man's attention more. He has none of those things on Winston. If you line up Winston next to Dalton, put them in their primes. Put Winston next to Dalton. People are choosing Winston every time. You watch him throw the ball, Winston. You watch him run, Winston. You watch him interact with a huddle, Winston. So now I have to say things that people can't quantify, that people can't actually look to and say, oh, that's what he means. Like, that's what he means. I don't know why you would ride for Dalton. I don't know why people are like, oh, and he had his time. He had some success. He was gifted a team full of all pro caliber players and couldn't get past the second round of the playoffs. He had his time. And now it's time for him to be what he is, a really good backup to have when your quarterback, when your starter gets hurt. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how the succession should be. Right? Joe Flacco, he's a really good backup now. Now the problem there is that their starter's no good in New York. For the New York Giants, Tyrod Taylor is a really good backup. You don't get fall off when he goes in for the starter. But it probably means at some point you need to increase or upgrade the starter. When we try to spin these narratives and we try to make things what they're not by using words and coded language, most people out there don't recognize it. They just continue to get fed the word, and subliminally, subconsciously, they begin to think the way the people want them to think. That's the power of the media. That's the power of it. The power that the media has is that I can continue to tell you things until you actually start believing that they're true. If I tell you enough that XYZ player is a bad teammate, but I never have any proof of it. XYZ player does not work hard, but I never have any proof of it. Then what does that say? See, the interesting part about the way in which narratives get spun is that we have to listen to it because we want to watch the game. Most times I end up watching games on silent. I get away from watching halftime shows and the pregame shows. Why? Because it's narratives all over the place. What are they trying to push my way this time? For instance, XYZ wide receiver goes to on the sideline, is incensed. He's mad. They say he's a malcontent. They say, oh, look at him showing his teammates up. XYZ quarterback does that on the same sideline. They call him a leader. Look at him take command. Look at him demanding greatness out of his teammates. What changed? Are you telling me that the quarterback wants to win more than the wide receiver does? So the wide receiver is only selfish when he does things, but said quarterback is a leader and wants the best for everybody? Hey, I'm yelling at the offensive line because I want the best for the offensive line. But if that offensive lineman yells at the quarterback, it's not because he wants the best for the quarterback. It's because he's selfish and he's a malcontent. What? We have to know when we're having the wool pulled over our eyes. They want you to believe things, so they keep telling them to you, right? They want you to believe these narratives, so they keep telling them to you. They're all over the place. They're happening everywhere. They're happening everywhere. People are being convinced to do things or to believe a certain way so that the narrative can become truth. They do it so that the narrative can become truth. It's like, and LJ brings up a point about the New York Giants wide receiver situation, right? Everybody talks about those wide receivers in New York. They talk about Slayton. Oh, Slayton's terrible. They need to cut Slayton. Slayton hasn't done anything. Slayton's not this. Slayton's not that. Slayton in training camps have been bad. Slayton this, Slayton that, right? They are doing that so that it's easy to set up for them to put Wan'Dale Robinson out there, to put Richie James out there, to put David Sills out there. The problem is when all these other guys get hurt and now you need to go back to a wide receiver and Slayton steps in, the guy that you said was awful, the guy that you ran with a narrative that was just bad. He's just bad. He's not good. They should get rid of him. They should get rid of him, right? He comes in, balls out. They talk bad about Kenny Golladay. Last time I checked, you cannot throw the ball to yourself. Why are we mad at Kenny Golladay for being paid well to not do a job? Most of us are paid well to not do jobs. Right now, there are people listening, going about their business at their job, not doing their job well. Nobody comes to them and says, hey, you can't be paying that dude $70,000 a year to be this bad at this job. The money should never dictate how we look at people. It should only be their works. Once they sign the contract, the money is the money. Oh, well, he doesn't deserve this. He doesn't. These narratives, they're going to push them on us. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to fall for it. People are like, oh, well, Kenny Golladay, He's so bad. Go and look at the stat book. 1 target. How can he be bad if he only gets 1 target? And David Sills gets 7, 6, 4, 5. How can it be about him being bad if, as a wide receiver, you need everybody else to do something for you in order to be able to shine? Coach has to call a play. Quarterback has to look your way. Then they have to throw an accurate ball. Defender has to be sleeping on their job. All those things have to happen. And then you have to catch the ball. It's a lot. There's a lot of forces. But it's that calming presence, the way in which they use that for Andy Dalton, that really did not sit well with me. It was like, oh, they really are trying to make sure that the narrative is that this guy should be the starting quarterback. When on the field, they just keep continuing to lose games. Here's everything you need to know about why Andy Dalton's not a starting quarterback anymore. Every time Andy Dalton starts, I tell anybody who's listening to start Taysom Hill in their fantasy. Whenever Andy Dalton starts, I immediately go start Taysom Hill. Why? It's really simple. Because when Andy Dalton's out there, they give Taysom Hill way more reps at quarterback. What does he do? He runs for touchdowns. He might actually throw a touchdown. He goes from being tight end number 25 to a top 3 tight end only when Andy Dalton's out there. You know why he doesn't when Jameis Winston's out there? Because they're not taking Jameis Winston out from being a quarterback to let this other dude run around. We don't have to. We have a real quarterback in there. Whatever New Orleans has against Jameis Winston, you guys got to get over it. He gives you the best opportunity to win. Or you continue to watch Andy Dalton go out there, be terrible, then when the game's out of reach, put a couple touchdowns on the board to make his stat line not look that bad. Is that what you want? Is that your king? I can't call it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing a few times a week. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Go ahead and run that thing up to 3,000 already. We're only 25 away. Till next time, peace.